Hello guys, welcome all of you to today's PHARMCAST. Today also we'll discuss 5 drugs of choice, one anti-cancer drug, and few questions which were asked by students in the comment box. Right guys, so let us straight away begin with our drugs of choice and I'll come to your questions at last. So the first drug of choice for today is a disorder called as Huntingtons SCoria. Now guys, Huntington's SCoria, the current drug of choice is tetrabenazine or deutetrabenazine. Any one of these two can be used. And all of you know what is tetrabenazine. It is an inhibitor of VMAT2. So what it does is, it blocks the release of dopamine. That is how it is effective in Huntington's SCoria. Now in case your patient is not responsive to tetrabenazine or deutetrabenazine, then our second line drugs are antipsychotics. Now guys, which antipsychotic to prefer? Now remember, if it is a case of moderate choria, then we go for atypical antipsychotics like risperidone or aripiprazole. But if it is severe choria, it usually does not respond to atypical antipsychotics, and the best drugs for severe choria, these are typical antipsychotics like haloperidol. Right, so Huntington's SCoria, drug of choice, tetrabenazine or deutetrabenazine, no response. Moderate choria, then atypical antipsychotics. Severe choria, go for haloperidol. Now moving on to second one guys, it's a helminth, H-nana. And H-nana, all of you know guys, it belongs to the cystodes, and for most of the cystodes, including H-nana, drug of choice is praziquantel, except few cystodes. Like the neurocysticercosis caused by T. solium and echinococcus. These are the only two cystodes where albendazole is the drug of choice. Otherwise, for everything else like H-nana, D-latam, etc., your drug of choice is praziquantel. Now you must know an alternative to praziquantel for treatment of H-nana is niclosamide. So niclosamide is an antihelminthic drug which was prior to praziquantel. It used to be the drug of choice for most of the cystodes. But now praziquantel has replaced niclosamide. Even nitazoxanide can be used for H-nana, right? But the drug of choice is praziquantel. Now moving on to the third disorder for today guys, and that is hypercalcemia of malignancy. Now bisphosphonates are the drug of choice for hypercalcemia of malignancy, and the bisphosphonate of choice is zoledronate. Zoledronate is the bisphosphonate of choice. Now remember something guys, if it is osteoporosis, right? If it is osteoporosis, then the bisphosphonate of choice are oral drugs like alendronate is more preferred than risedronate. Other than that, if I use bisphosphonate for some other disorder like hypercalcemia, malignancy or Paget's disease, in that case I prefer a more potent drug like zoledronate. Moving on to the fourth disorder for today guys, that is hypercholesterolemia. And hypercholesterolemia, in this case guys, if when cholesterol is high, then obviously in hypercholesterolemia the preferred hypolipidemic drugs, they are statins, right? And among the statins, the drug that causes a maximum decrease in LDL is rosuvastatin. That is why you might have seen it is very commonly used in clinical practice. Whereas statins are not safe to be used in pregnancy and children less than 10 years of age. So in these children and pregnancy, bile acid binding resins are preferred, right? Now guys, coming on to the fifth and the last disorder for today in the drug of choice section, that is hyperlipoproteinemia. Now remember, two hyperlipoproteinemias, they need treatment with drugs. Type 2 hyperlipoproteinemia, here the drug of choice are statins, because here we are mostly dealing with increased LDL. So statins are the drug of choice. Type 3 hyperlipoproteinemia, drug of choice are fibrates, because here we are dealing with an increased triglycerides, VLDL, chylomicrons. So fibrates are the drug of choice. So guys, remember, hyperlipoproteinemia, type 2 statins, type 3 fibrates. Now let's move on to the second part of the PHARMCAST, where I discuss one anti-cancer drug, and the drug I've chosen for today is another important drug which has been asked a few times in your exams, hydroxyurea. Guys, hydroxyurea is an inhibitor of RNR, or that is also known as ribonucleotide diphosphate reductase, right? So when I block this, there is a block in conversion of ribose nucleotides into deoxyribose nucleotides, and thus what I do in this process is I block DNA synthesis, which means what? Hydroxyurea blocks S phase, right? S phase in the cell cycle. It is drug of choice for three conditions, guys: polycythemia vera, essential thrombocythemia, and sickle cell disease. Now remember, polycythemia vera, essential thrombocythemia, the mechanism of action that I just discussed stands good. But for sickle cell anemia, the mechanism is different. Guys, how is it effective? Because sickle cell anemia is not a cancer, right? So how is it effective in sickle cell anemia? Guys, what it does, it increases production of fetal hemoglobin, right? And you know that fetal hemoglobin, it is resistant to sickling. That is how, because it is more soluble. That is how hydroxyurea is effective in sickle cell disease. So it is drug of choice for three conditions which you should remember. Side effect, one important side effect, guys, it causes painful leg ulcers. That is what you need to remember. So guys, we have now come to the last section of PHARMCAST where I discuss some of your doubts and queries. And even though some of your queries, they are repeated, but I still consider them and I still discuss them, because sometimes you need to tell things time and again so that it gets into your subconscious mind. So the first question is, guys, I gave a grand test today and it was too difficult and it left me anxious and my confidence shattered. So what should I do? So this is something I have already discussed many times about grand tests, that how much score you are getting in a grand test, that is never the first priority in a grand test, right? That comes last. Other priorities I've discussed, you can see in the other PHARMCAST, what are the different things you need to do while you give a GT. And see guys, broadly speaking, whenever you give grand tests, they differ from one institute to another institute. They'll keep on varying in intensity and difficulty level. Even in the same institute, different GTs might vary widely, right, in the difficulty level. And a poor performance in one or two GTs does not mean that your preparation is jeopardized. On the contrary, these difficult GTs, they keep you on your toes. They do not let you be complacent that, all right, I'm doing well and I can now go into the comfort zone. So these GTs, they are intentionally they are kept so hard so that you don't go into your comfort zone. And if you keep toiling, right? And usually what I have seen is that all GTs are on the difficult side except the last one just before the exam, NEET exam. It is more similar to the NEET exam. You will see the difficulty level, it is more similar to the NEET exam. But before that, they don't want you to get relaxed. So the institutes, they are not wrong in setting papers which are much difficult, because they are not here to feed your ego. That, all right, I'm studying and I'm getting good rank and this and that. No, these GTs are not only about making you satisfied about how much numbers you're getting. These GTs are also about to keep you stimulated, right? So that you keep on toiling hard so that you get there. So I hope you got my point, guys. Difficult GTs, not an issue. You're not scoring good, you're not scoring 50% even. That also does not mean you're out of the race. Not yet, guys. The real scenario, the climax is still left. And the climax in a preparation is the revision. So how you go forward with revision is more important. Now, believe me, even if you are scoring 40%, 45% in your GTs, there is a high probability that after you revise, you might go above 55, 60% quite easily, guys. It happened with me, and I have discussed this earlier as well, that I never used to get even 50% in my grand tests, right? And I had not finished my revision. But the moment I finished my revision, I started getting 52, 54, 55%. And forget about my rank. My rank was in thousands, right? But the last GT, the GT before the exam, right? Before the NEET exam, I gave. And in that GT, I gave it in an institute which is very famous. And I got a rank of around, All India rank of around, somewhere around 500, something like that, if I remember it correct, right? So that is the effect what the revision has. First revision, I was able to cross 50%. Second revision, I was able to cross 55%, 60%. Third revision and the last GT, I was within 1000 rank. So can you imagine how drastically your rank, your performance in GTs, they change when you revise, when you go through first, second and third revision. So hold your nerves. This is not the time, right, to lose it. You have come too far, right, to go back now. Now, second question, guys. A student has asked me, I'm getting 60 to 70% in Q Bank, but I'm getting just 50 to 55% in GTs. Why? See, I've discussed this earlier as well, but again I'll discuss it so that you can understand. So guys, QBank, see what happens when you solve a QBank. You go through the videos or notes or whatever it is, right? And then you go and solve the QBank. So there is a recent memory that's playing here, and you're bound to score better. But GTs, it is a mixed bag, 19 subjects, right? And making a good score in an exam where the questions are from 19 subjects, it is not a joke, because here recent memory would not be playing part for most of the subjects which you might have studied 1, 2, 3 months back, right? So that is where revision comes in, right guys? So to score well in GTs, you have to do revision, right? So after you are through your first revision, second revision, third revision, you'll see that your score will drastically change. So it is quite obvious that any person, right? It would be obvious any person would score better in QBank as compared to GTs. But does not matter, guys. Even a 50-55% score which you are getting in GTs, I would say it is not bad. There is a lot of time left for revision and improvement, and you can easily go beyond 60-65% in the coming time. Coming to third question, guys, a student has asked me, medicine is so vast and I don't think I can finish in time. What should I do? So I've talked earlier about such a situation. In general, I had talked about what can you do when you are not able to finish a subject, right? And there are two ways to go about it, guys. There are two ways to go about it. One is you can do the revision videos, and perhaps this is the best use of revision videos according to me. For those subjects which are not able to complete on time, you can do this, right? Second option is you can begin your revision, start your revision, right? Suppose you have completed 18 subjects, only medicine is left. So start revising 18 subjects, and side by side every day keep 3 hours for medicine. Keep 3 hours for medicine, and I would advise you to go for the second part, right? And why you should go for the second part, I'll make it clear in a short while, answering another question by a student, right? So actually there was another question a student had asked, that is, now that NMC has been formed, what will be the NEET line? See, so we don't even have to go to the NMC to make a guess as to what NEET would look like. If you go through the previous MCI screening exam, right? Because NET board, it conducts the MCI exam, NET board conducts your NEET exam, right? So I kind of feel it's a trailer for your NEET exam, and the paper that is gonna come this time, it would be totally clinically oriented, right? So even it was same in the last year's NEET exam, but this year it would be even more clinical, and you guys would be flooded with images. I guess you'll be having at least 120 to 150 images, somewhere in that range. So it means what? You cannot ignore medicine, or else NEET will ignore you, guys. I hope you got my point. So for that student was asking, what can I do with medicine? Guys, don't take medicine lightly, right? Start revising your 18 subjects, but side by side every day 3 hours, keep doing medicine, and that will help you in the long haul when you solve the questions. So from 300 questions, give or take at least 80 to 100 questions, you'll have some input from medicine to solve those questions. So medicine is pretty important. If you ask me, I would say out of the 90 subjects, single most important subject going forward for a NEET exam would be medicine. So how can you ignore medicine? You cannot, right? So guys, I hope that's clear to all of you, and that's all for today, guys. If you have any such doubts, you can always let me know in the comment box, and I'll try to incorporate your doubts in one of my next Pharmcast. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. This was Dr. Ranjan with you.